Welcome back to the channel, guys. As you saw in the intro, I wanted to showcase the power of the mages themselves. And even though they aren't the fastest build ever, they can clear content fairly quickly, even on players 8. Now, I only used mages and the golem, but the build goes beyond, and I'll get to that in the skill overview. But first, let's start with the gear. All this is pretty standard for summon Necros, so for the weapon we're going to use the Arm of King Leoric. Because we're using mages, we don't really need the Fanaticism aura, and that's where most of our damage will come from. For the helmet, we're going to use the infamous Shaco, and I put a Cham rune in there just for the cannot be frozen aspect. Is something that seemed a lot more necessary to build, although you can also stick an rune in there if you really want more res, because this build is res problematic. For our offhand, we use the Dark Force Spawn for 3 summoning skills, again socketed with an rune to help fix those resistances. Mars for the amulet for the same reason. You do of course have to use Enigma for the body armor. And then I had Trang's gloves. The extra 2 bonus to curses does give a little bit of benefit for this build, but you also do get the cold res as well as the faster cast rate. Arachnid's Mesh for 1 to all skills, Stones of Jordan's for more skill increase, and a Marrow Walk set of boots. And you'll see here on our offhand the CTA, which buffs our skills by 1, does make this a little bit perfect because you have level 47 skeleton mages, and bumping that up to 48 gives you that extra mage itself, bumping it up to 18. For charms, obviously we have the Hellfire Torch, Unilis, Summoning Grand Charms, and because we're using mages and they vary from the elements, lightning and poison are pretty simple to break, even with just infinity. Golden Fire, not so much. So we're going to be using the Cold Sunder and the Fire Sunder, and of course all resist small charms to try and fix as much as we can, because we do struggle with resists. For stats, of course, put the minimum amount of strength. You could even use something lower than the Archon Plate, and then you can get less strength bonus, just so you can put more into health. And that covers the gear. Now, for the skills. So outside of the summoning tree, you can put 1 point into bone armor. It's not going to do a crazy amount of absorb, but for 1 point, may as well have something extra. Protection. For curses, you are going to put a point into everything, and the one you're going to want to use is lower resist. And at this level, that's I believe negative 62 is as far as it actually goes in terms of lowering resist. So you don't need to invest any points into that. Now, summoning wise, 1 point into raise skeleton, and of course max out skeleton mastery. I'm going to max out skeleton mages. And then for the golem, you do want the fire golem because it's the elemental one. Plus the little holy fire aura is nice, and it does a decent amount of damage. So what you're going to want to do, obviously 1 point to play golem. Leave this for last, for whatever skills you have left over. 1 to blood, 1 to iron, and then max out fire golem. Put 2 points into summon resist to hit that 69% all resist bonus for your minions. And then golem mastery will before that, actually max out revives as well. And this is where the build really does take a different turn, because on top of your mages, you also have 45 revive monsters, and in places like Chaos Sanctuary, most of the monsters that you do get are elemental monsters. Same in Worldstone Keep, you want to try and get monsters that do elemental skills, Venom Lords, Blood Lords, Glooms, Pyrofancy, even anything that really uses some sort of elemental skill. And the remainder of points you're going to put into Golem Mastery. As you can see, Fire Golem does synergize from the other ones. If you wanted to have more life, you can invest in Blood Golem instead, or want to have more defense. That's really up to you, but my recommendation is just put into Golem Mastery, get rid of that bonus life attack rating, and walk around speed. And that's it for the skills. It's not exactly black and white when answering the question whether or not mages are good. The way I look at it is they are viable and the build works. If you enjoy the Undead Army of Mages fantasy, the build works and can do most of the content. The issue at hand is that there are much faster builds. Another downside to this one is it takes time to move, as you have to have your mercenary and fire golem kill things in order for you to be able to summon your mages. Also, getting 45 revives on top of that can be tedious, with only a duration of 3 minutes for them, ends up being a non-stop wheel of revives dying and you trying to summon more. For a build that's meant to be rather lazy, you're constantly switching between teleport, lower resist, and summons. Not to mention your CTA swap buff, which also kills a couple of your summons due to skill levels being lowered. That being said, I personally enjoy having active playstyles, and having things to upkeep certainly made the build more enjoyable for me, and I had a lot of fun playing it. Anyways, that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as it does help out the channel. By the end of this week, I'll also try to have a video featuring the new game that's coming to the channel itself. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.